Hello, I'm John Heiney, the Community Outreach Manager and the head of the Tourism Office for the City of Prescott. And this is Prescott Today. Welcome. Today, we are going to be visiting our three fine museums in the City of Prescott. We're going to start with Charlotte Hall Museum, and I have with me today our Executive Director for the Charlotte Hall Museum, Fred Vail. Hi Fred, how are you?
I'm fine, John. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, glad to be here.
Appreciate the opportunity to showcase this museum.
Absolutely. This is a beautiful museum, a beautiful place, and I have a few questions for you.
Well, I'll try to answer them.
All right, sir. Well, first of all, why don't you tell us all about the Charlotte Hall Museum? What is it?
Well, of course it's a museum.
Of course.
But we like to think it's more than that. In fact, it is the only institution in all of Arizona that presents the complete prehistory and, pre-territorial and territorial years of Arizona, from its prehistoric roots up through the establishment of the Arizona Territory, the creation of its governing body here in Prescott, Arizona in 1864, and on into the 20th century. In addition, we're an historic site, as we are the home of the Governor's Mansion. The 1864 Governor's Mansion that was the home and office of the first territorial governors of Arizona, and which currently sits on our location, on our museum campus, and is the centerpiece, of course, of our museum.
Wonderful. The mansion is right behind us, as a matter of fact.
The mansion is right behind us, yeah. So in addition to that, we are probably, although I don't know for sure, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, museums in all of Arizona, as we were founded in 1928 by Charlotte Maybrith Hall, a very remarkable woman who established this museum in those years.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit more about Charlotte Hall and her background and how she came to be here?
Charlotte came here as a 12-year-old with her family, grew up on a ranch just east of Prescott. She had little in the way of formal education, but became quite literate, an accomplished poet. She was a historian. She was a politician. She was an activist, a woman well ahead of her time. And in the course of time, became the territorial historian, the first woman to hold a public office in the Arizona Territory. And importantly, she foresaw the need to preserve Arizona's history. She was Arizona Territory's first preservationist. And she began to collect Native American and pioneer artifacts, which she then used to open this museum in 1928 in the gubernatorial mansion, as it was then called.
So Fred, what would a typical visitor expect to find when they come to Charlotte Hall Museum?
Well, as I noted, the museum opened in 1928 in the Governor's Mansion, and over the course of the 89 years that has since passed, it has grown into a 4-acre campus featuring beautifully landscaped grounds, 11 exhibit buildings, 5 of which are of historic nature, and a full-service research center. But as we like to say to people, the museum is more than just its buildings and its exhibits. It is a cultural center that we think educates, enlightens, and entertains. And what we would like people to take from the museum when they leave here is not just an understanding of what Arizona Territory on its frontier was like in the late 1800s, but more importantly, an understanding of how our history has impacted upon their lives, the lives of current and future generations, and will continue to do so. It gives them kind of a sense of place, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So really the full perspective of history of Arizona, not just the 1800s, but far beyond.
Yeah, and how that impacts upon their lives.
Sure. Does the museum offer any special programming that you want to talk about?
Oh yes, we do. We have three major festivals, the Folk Arts Fair in June, the Prescott Indian Art Market in July, and the Folk Music Festival in October. In addition to that, we have monthly lectures on various historical subjects. We run school tours, adult tours. We have living history interpretations. And we also have a once a year do an annual a Western History Symposium that has obtained statewide recognition for its excellence.
Great.
Yeah, the folk or the Prescott Indian Art Market, for example, is regarded as one of the finest in the Southwest. Our Native American participants say it's in the top 3 in the entire Southwest. Our Folk Music Festival, we're now in our 44th year, and it is the oldest running folk music festival in all of Arizona.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Does the museum have other resources that they offer to visitors and to the public in general?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have a full-service research center. We have we call it our library and archives, where we have a 10,000 volume library of books that are relevant to our mission area, our Western history, and particularly that of Arizona. And we have 1 million or so, or several million pages of documents, many of them original. We have hundreds of thousands of photographs. We have oral histories, and we have maps and so forth that are all available for the public. The museum or the library and archives is no charge to the public for viewing and researching, and we have researchers from all over the country, indeed, who come here to research our area. We have the finest, what I think is the finest research facility in all of northern Arizona.
That's wonderful. Do you have an archivist on staff?
We do.
Excellent.
We do. We have an archivist and an assistant archivist as well.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah. And 30 or more volunteers. I should add that with respect to this museum, we don't have a large staff, but we have 300 volunteers who put in about 25,000 hours a year to support us with respect to maintaining the grounds, admissions, store, library and archives, collections, and so forth, every aspect of the operations of the museum.
That's wonderful. I know I've been in some of the buildings, and there have been folks there that are volunteers that help answer questions or clarify any questions that the visitors have. So that's very helpful.
That's right. We do have docents in some of the buildings. They're very knowledgeable, very helpful. We have other docents who act as tour guides for the kids and for the adults.
Great. And I think on some weekends, or maybe you can tell me a little bit about some of the volunteers and folks that actually dress up in period costume and sort of reenact some of these scenes.
That's our Living History Weekend, the second weekend of every month. We do it here at the museum. We also operate a satellite museum at Fort Whipple, where we have living history activities on the third weekend of third Saturday of every month. But yeah, they are interpreters, they're not reenactors.
Okay.
And they do dress in authentically period costumes and talk about the various areas in which they work.
Great. Sounds very interesting. So I know there's some great exhibits here, and we're going to maybe take a look at a few. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me.
We're here at the Prehistory exhibit inside the Charlotte Hall Museum. Brett, can you tell us a little bit about this exhibit?
Well, it started about 2013, where we began to develop this part of the building, the Lawler Exhibit Center, into a prehistory exhibit. It encompasses the Pleistocene epoch, the beasts and the mammoths and the mastodons and so forth that roamed this part of the world before human habitation. Then about 13,000 years ago, the first humans began to cross the Bering Strait, the natives, and came into this part of the world. They were hunters and gatherers. people we call the Clovis people. You've heard of Clovis points, which is the spears used for spears and arrows and so forth, that projectiles that were found in these areas, and these people are named for them. But they were here from about 13,000 to, 13,000 years ago is when they came. But they were here until they ultimately moved on and were eventually replaced by people that we call the Prescott culture. And that's an exhibit that has just recently opened and presents the people who lived here from about 300 AD to about 1300 AD, and who actually built habitations, pit houses, ball courts, left rock art, and so forth. And those people are, we believe, and many archaeologists believe, were the ancestral root of the Yavapai, who currently live here, as you well know. So
absolutely, very interesting. So this new exhibit talks a little bit about those folks and sort of kind of has representations of their homes and their habitats and sort of their lifestyle at the time.
Yeah, the newest part will actually we'll have a representative pit house. We'll have we show the pottery that was traded back and forth throughout what is now Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and southern Arizona. There was an actual mercantile system, and we have pottery that is here on display that presents that.
Wonderful, very interesting. Well, great, thank you for showing this to us. I think our next stop is going to be the Transportation Building.
Okay.
We're here at the Transportation Building at the Charlotte Hall Museum. Fred, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, as the name certainly would suggest, this is where we keep our rolling stock, as we like to call it. Everything from bicycles to buggies to wagons to a stagecoach. Charlotte's car is here as well, and a 1917 Ford pickup truck that which was our most recent acquisition, and the bicentennial wagon, which is behind us here. That was a wagon, it's a replica Conestoga wagon that was in 1976, pulled from Yuma to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, where to celebrate our country's bicentennial celebration.
That's wonderful. So this is an example of something I would not expect at the museum, but it really does show the history of transportation in one building.
It does, and it's the history of Western transportation, to be sure, with the various wagons. There is a cart behind us, that hose cart that was used for firefighting purposes in the 1800s, and this is a replica over here of a farm wagon. Not a replica, it is a farm wagon that we actually restored significantly in the past year. So
you've actually done some restoration of some of these vehicles here at the museum.
Oh yes, we have a very talented staff. They practically rebuilt that wagon from wheels up. The 1917 Ford Model T truck, the cab and the seating and all that was reconstructed here.
Wonderful.
Stagecoach was actually had seen service in the 1800s in Tombstone, and was significantly restored. Not by our folks, but by others.
Wonderful. Well, great. Well, thanks for sharing this with us.
You're certainly welcome, and thank you for visiting with us.
It was a great visit and a very informative visit. Thank you very much, Fred. We really enjoyed our time here at Charlotte Hall Museum. Thanks to Fred Vail and his staff for hosting us today. Now we're on to our next stop, and that is the Pippin Museum. We'll see you there. We're here now at the Pippin Museum with Executive Director Kim Villalpando. Thanks for having us, Kim.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for having me on and giving you an opportunity to say what's going on at the Pippin Museum.
Sure. So can you tell us about some of the upcoming things that you have coming for the museum?
Well, as you're probably aware, the city of Prescott is putting in a roundabout in the front of the museum. So with that improvement of the infrastructure, we also have plans to make some improvement to the amenities here at the museum. And they include putting on additional space for our permanent collection storage, as well as a new pavilion out back for different events and so forth.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that pavilion? It sounds very exciting.
Well, it's going to be about 2,200 square feet. We're going to have a fireplace. It should seat about 200 people for dinner. We plan to have adult workshops, youth workshops, all sorts of things out there, even rentals. It'll have a catering kitchen, as well as some additional parking up there, and space to have outdoor events where people can have tents and sell art and so forth.
So Kim, I know there's some great improvements that the city's planning on the highway outside of the museum that's going to create some public art. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We are really excited that a piece by George Phippen, Cowboy in a Storm, it's bronze, will grace the center of the roundabout. They are going to recreate that at life size and a half. So I'd like to think this is going to be the gateway into Prescott, and we're just really happy to have a piece by George Phippen that's going to be out in the front. So.
One thing I love about this museum, not just the views inside, but the views outside. You're in such a beautiful area, and I think that new pavilion up there will even have greater views and great opportunity for people to gather.
Exactly. I say we probably have one of the most beautiful locations of any other museum in the country. So.
I would definitely agree. So can you tell us a little bit about your collection room?
Well, our collection room right now is about 300 square feet. So we have pretty much outgrown that space. We plan an addition on the back which will add about 1,200 square feet to store both paintings and bronze. I've been talking a lot to individuals who are involved with the museum who are interested in bequesting their collections. So we're constantly growing our permanent collection, and it's time for us to grow a little bit in that direction. So.
That's great. So I know the museum has a specific mission, including educating the public about the unique heritage, history, legends, and influence of the art of the American West. Tell us what you are working on right now to further that goal.
Well, John, we are offering adult workshops. So we have some coming up, but we're in oil, sculpture, pastels, all sorts of different things. But I'm most proud about our youth outreach and education. Our education coordinator has developed a program where every first Saturday of the month he offers a free workshop to kids, and he also encourages if adults want to partake they can as well. But he's got some great things lined up in that way, and it is free, so that's really nice. We also are doing a lot of adult or youth outreach. So Neil goes out into our local schools, and last year he went to 45 different classrooms, and he educated 1,800 different students. And so we're very proud of that because, with budget cuts on the school, we're trying to supplement that through the Phippen Museum, and so it's going very well.
That's wonderful, yeah. So enriching the children's lives with art and education like that and going to them at the schools.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
So what upcoming exhibits do you have scheduled here? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, currently we have By the Light of the Moon, which I'm very proud of. It's all nocturne paintings. But the space that we are sitting in is a changing exhibit space, and so we do about 3 to 4 different exhibits every year. So there's always something new to see at the Phippen Museum, as well as we have our permanent exhibits behind us, our Western Heritage Gallery. We have a Phippen Gallery. We have Solon Borglum Gallery. So there's a lot to see here. The lower level offers, space for us to do Saturday programming, and we work a lot with the Arizona Humanities Council to bring us speakers for educating the public further. We also have a classroom down there. We have a boardroom down there, so a lot going on.
Yeah, so you mentioned the new pavilion, but right now you have banquet facilities available for people to have conferences from board meeting. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we do rent the museum out, so if anyone is interested in that, give us a call, talk to Neil, and we can try to work that all out.
Yeah, again, it's a beautiful location, beautiful area to learn about art, but also see the amazing views in the area. So, well, this has been really a wonderful, wonderful visit to the museum, and really appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
we're here at the historic Smoke Eye Museum. We're going to go inside and talk to Cindy Gresser and learn a little bit about this museum and how it represents Prescott's culture. So we're here with Cindy Gresser, Executive Director of the Smoke Eye Museum. Thank you for having us, Cindy.
Thank you for coming.
So tell us a little bit about the Smoke Eye.
Oh my, where do I begin? The Smoke Eye Museum was built in 1935 as a WPA CCW project. One of the Smoke Eye people, Charles Elrod, was the director of the WPA, and along with Grace Sparks, they put together a grant for $19,600 and built this museum to house American Indian art and culture.
Wonderful. So that's the history of it. Tell us a little bit about what's going on now at the Smoke Eye.
Well, there's a lot going on at the Smoke Eye right now. We've recently renovated all of our beautiful pottery cases, installed LED lighting. We have a wonderful special exhibit up now, another one coming in very soon. We are rebuilding our cases to make them more culturally specific. Our Apache case is, I think, one of the finest examples that we've seen, and hopefully before the end of this year, we'll have a brand new Navajo case that's going to have some amazing objects in it. Many of them donated to the museum through funding from the Westerners International, so we're really pleased about that.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
Great. So what do you have, what's some of the upcoming events and activities that you have?
Well,
here?
let's see. We're opening soon a very interesting exhibit. It is going to be Contemporary Indian People of Prescott. And what a lot of folks don't realize is every day right here in our town, you're dealing with Native people, and they are from a variety of cultures. And so maybe the guy that is cleaning the parking garage for the city of Prescott, or maybe your hairdresser, or maybe a gentleman that works at West Yavapai Guidance Center that's taking care of one of your family members. All of those are Native people. And we live and work together here. And I think we need to get to know those people better and share what their cultures are. And so we're going to talk about that. And our Assistant Director, Manuel Lucero, is putting that exhibit together. Of course, he's president of Prescott Powwow Committee, vice president of Granite Mountain Gourd Society. And so we're also going to share some unique cultural information. I think people are curious how our Native people celebrate their Indianness, if you will. What is the Native American Church? What is gourd dance? What is sun dance? What's the difference between them? And why are they still popular, and why are they being practiced today? And so hopefully the public is going to learn a little bit more about our Native people, locally and far away, through this exhibit. We're really
Wonderful.
excited.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
really this is a museum that celebrates the heritage and the history, but it also is going to talk about present-day Indians.
Absolutely. American Indian culture is alive, thriving, expanding, and we need to stop thinking of our indigenous people as in the past. They are here, and they have livelihoods and lives that need to be celebrated.
Wonderful. So the full gamut of
The full gamut.
history through present day.
You betcha.
So let's go back to the history a little bit. What's one of the oldest pieces that you would have here at the museum?
We have a Clovis point here in the museum, which then indicates that it is between 10 and 14,000 years old or older. Scientists are still doing research and still figuring out what time period Clovis actually covers. And so I'd like to think that, yes, we have something really, really old here that people can come and take a look at.
Wonderful. So how many tribes or different Indian cultures are represented here, would you say?
Wow, that's too hard to answer.
There's too many.
There's too
so
many.
Wonderful.
You know, we have Apache, we have Hopi, we have Navajo, of course we have the Yavapai, Tohono O'odham, the list goes on. We even have some California baskets. We like to utilize those when we talk about the Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
Many people think of the Southwest as 4 states, but it really depends upon what period in time you're addressing. The Southwest could be from California to Texas, from the mid part of Colorado all the way down into Mexico. So we embrace all of those areas throughout time as being part of the Southwest.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you have so many beautiful pieces here, so many historically significant pieces here. What is one of your favorite pieces here?
Well, it has to be the mountain sheep. We have 2 ram's heads that were found at the rodeo grounds in 1935. Grace Sparks called up Malcolm Cummings, who was the curator, the very first curator here at the museum. Rocks were being taken out of a pile of rubble, and she wanted them to stop because she recognized it as an archaeological ruin. So she went to Malcolm and said, please get them to stop. And oh, by the way, they found these really 2 interesting things. He went over there, and the heads were facing one east, one west. They are ground and worn on the top of their heads. They're not a locally sourced rock. They have magnetic properties.
That's very interesting.
So what were they? Were they effigies, sacrifice? The Yavapai people, the Pai people, many other cultures, including Tohono O'odham, sometimes associate mountain sheep to Orion. Could it possibly have been for hunting, or don't know? They're our own little mystery in the museum, John, and
That's
we
wonderful.
really think they're cool.
They sound a little magical too.
Well, we'd have had a few patrons come in and hang magnets and crystals over them, and when you do that, they move, and they move like crazy. So there's something special about them.
So a little bit of history, a little bit of modern culture, a little bit of magic, and a little bit of mystery at the Smoke Eye.
Always.
That's
Always,
awesome. That's
always.
great. So when a visitor comes here for the first time, what can they expect to find, and what would be a typical visit for them?
I think most people will spend between an hour and 2 in the museum. They're going to hear a very interesting story, which is a unique slice of Prescott's history. The Smoke Eye people replicated Indian dance for nearly 70 years, and not always in a great way, but they certainly tried to preserve some cultures along the way. That was disrupted in 1990 by our native people, and that's when the dances stopped. So you're going to hear that whole history. There's a wonderful exhibit describing it. You can find out all of the activities that it took to put on a Hollywood-level production at the rodeo grounds. But you're also going to find out that there have been people in our area for a very, very long time, 10,000 years or more. And there was a vibrant culture here called the Prescott culture. And they built and inhabited this area for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this little museum has the largest collection of Prescott culture pottery on display in the United States. Again, our cases are filled with cultural representations from many different tribes around the Southwest. And you're also going to see the largest collection of Kate Corey paintings on display in the United States. Kate Corey was a fascinating woman from Waukegan, Illinois, and she spent 7 years on the Hopi Reservation. She learned, studied Hopi culture, Hopi language, and then translated many of the images that she took via photographs into magnificent paintings. And those paintings today hang in the back of our gallery. One of them traveled with the Autry Museum for over a year. Kate Corey is yet to be recognized for the woman that she was. One of our trustees is writing a book about her right now. But certainly she was probably one of the most fascinating women here in Prescott in history. She, along with Charlotte Hall and Grace Sparks, were true movers and shakers here in town for many, many years. And so I always like to talk about Kate.
Absolutely. It sounds like the heritage of women in Prescott is a lot. We learned about Charlotte Hall at the museum, so it's nice to hear that we're celebrating that heritage.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Always, always. And we have another woman that we're going to celebrate very soon. The museum is fortunate that we have just been gifted transcriptions and audio and photographs of an interview with Annie Dodge Winika. in 1985. And Annie is a very interesting woman, Navajo, daughter of the first president of the Navajo Nation. She was very instrumental in gaining health care for all Navajo people. And so we have a very unique opportunity here to talk about another amazing Indigenous woman.
That's wonderful. Well, a lot of great history, art, and culture here. Great place to visit. Thank you for having us here, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thanks to talk to you. Thank you for joining us for Prescott Today. We hope you enjoyed your visit to these three fine museums that represent the art, history, and culture of Prescott. We'll see you next time.